you go. In case you guys were wondering. So son is in Albany, New York now. Danny, where are you at?
San Diego.
Okay, cool. So you're still out here.
Yep.
Right on. What part of town?
Right by 5 and 52. So not very far away from growing up.
Nice. The old stomping grounds.
Yep.
Yeah, very cool. And son, I gotta know, man, how did you end up in Albany?
It's a really good question. Last time you probably saw me was we graduated. I went to Berkeley for 4 years. From Berkeley, I thought that pharmacy school was the right thing for me. So I went to pharmacy school at UC San Diego. But somewhere, probably would say like my second year in pharmacy school, we started taking classes with the medical students. And that kind of gave me this idea that, maybe I could do more with my career.
Of course.
And I felt like I should strive to be a doctor, a physician instead. But since I was already in pharmacy school, I made sure to finish it. I worked for a couple of years for CVS. I was applying through medical school during that time. And then back in 2012, when I wasn't getting in initially, I don't think I was as committed to the process. But, my brother, Vin, he said to me, so I still remember this, is like my day off. I was put on the wait list to a wait list for medical school. It was actually the military medical school. And it just made me think, like, Vin said, you're not very good at being a pharmacist, and you're not very good at being a medical school applicant. He said, you gotta pick, you're on the fence, you gotta pick. And so, that night I thought about it. Oh, sorry about that. My cat. Get down. So that night I thought about it. Then I went to work and I talked to one of my mentors on the phone before work that day in the parking lot. And she said, if this is the right path for you, you just have to trust it, even if it doesn't look like it at this time. And so I was like June 2012. It was like March 2012, something like that. And I said, right, I'll put in my 2-week notice that day. And I haven't worked as a pharmacist since. I got into med school that December. I went to med school in Iowa, Des Moines. I lived there for a couple of years. It was a DO school. I did my rotations mainly in Ohio. I spent some time in Louisiana and Shreveport. I was in Pennsylvania and North Central Pennsylvania, Danville.
You've been everywhere.
And then I matched residency for internal medicine pediatrics here in Albany, New York. I've been here for 4 years. Actually just graduated yesterday. It's my last week.
Congratulations.
Awesome, man.
I'm going to be endocrinology fellow at Baylor in Houston. So I'm moving to Houston next Saturday. I'll be there for a couple years. Yeah.
That's amazing, man. It brings you down to the warm weather again.
Yeah. No.
I don't know if that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's been cold. I've dealt with a lot of cold, here in upstate New York and the Midwest. So it's been good.
Well, at least you'll have some good Vietnamese food in Houston.
Yeah, that's right. Looking forward to that.
Is there any good Vietnamese food up in Albany?
Not much,
Yeah, imagine there being.
And it's expensive too.
Yeah.
Not like back home, where it's $7 dishes, $10 dishes. It's like $16, $17 dishes.
Wow.
Like New York City, almost in that regard.
Yeah. You've been to some places where you must have stood out, like in Des Moines.
Yeah. I lived in, where in the movie Tommy Boy, Sandusky, Ohio. I actually lived in Sandusky, Ohio. So
wow.
Son went around saying, "Let me tell you why I suck as a pharmacist." Oh wait, was that Tommy Boy?
Yeah,
that's Tommy Boy, right? Where he was like the salesman trying to be like his dad.
Yeah.
Okay, the joke worked. I'm happy.
That's rad, son. Congrats, man.
Thanks, Ryan.
That's so cool, dude.
Yeah.
What does an endocrinology fellow do, son?
Yeah, so it's like the next step after residency if you want to do a subspecialty within internal medicine or pediatrics. So like residency, if you guys aren't familiar, so medical school is like your general like training, and then you do a residency in order to be eligible for board certification in whatever specialty you choose. Most residencies, they just teach you how to do general medicine, whether it be like surgery or radiology, dermatology. But then if you want to subspecialize further, oftentimes they offer like fellowships, and they're anywhere from 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Mine's 2 years. So yeah, so as an endocrinology fellow, I would work under an attending, and this would be the next step before I become like my own full-fledged doctor. I would be learning about diabetes, pituitary diseases, thyroid, things like anything that involves the endocrine system.
Hey, son, question for you. Did you ever get to the point where you considered like offshore med schools, like in the Caribbean?
It's a funny thing, like when I was like learning about medical school, how to apply for it, I purchased a book called How to Get into Medical School, what things you need to know. And it said something where, if you end up in those places, you really need to think about your application in general and like what your purpose are. Fortunately, the DO route worked for me. One of my best friends from college, he went to medical school at UC San Diego and then went on to be a cardiologist. Him and his wife suggested that I think of DO schools, and I didn't think about it at that time because I was just applying to MD schools. But once I applied DO, they have a very like holistic way of looking at things. And I think with my like pharmacy experience, I think it really stood out because I still remember like one of my questions I got asked in my interviews was, why would we pick you over somebody who's younger? Because I was like 29 at the time when I interviewed, and they're comparing me to a 22-year-old. And I just answered, well, I quit a high lucrative job for this. So I'm all in. There's no plan B.
Yeah.
And I didn't get any response back, So that's the place I got into. So that's
Nice.
the first one I got into. So
Good answer.
Yeah.
Did you rehearse that, or was that off the cuff?
that was just like whatever that came to my mind. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Married, kids yet?
No, just girlfriend.
Nice. Cool, man.
Yeah.
Did you meet her in Albany?
Yeah, she was a nurse.
Whoa.
Yeah, I met her intern year.
Wow. Cool. Is she gonna come with you to Houston?
No, she has a job here. So she started working there in September. So then she'll hopefully follow me in a couple of years. But residency fellowship's a little different. It's like training is once you become an attending, then you kind of have more control over your life. When you're a fellow resident, you just somebody makes your schedule and you just show up. The worst thing you can do is not be available at work. So yeah, I just have to get through that. Yeah.
Son's living in one of those romance movies where like he's just bouncing around, and then like there's this attractive nurse at the hospital, and he starts talking to her, and all of a sudden the future doctor hooks up with the nurse.
It's his own episode of Grey's Anatomy.
So crazy stuff happens in the hospital, Jackie.
It's really like Grey's Anatomy. I've heard.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the title for the podcast for this episode could be Son's Anatomy, but that sounds, if you don't actually
No.
if they don't make it this far, there's no explanation.
We got to fit that into the thumbnail somehow.
Yeah. We talk about Son's Anatomy.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
What about you, Daniel? What have you been doing, man?
I've been basically since I graduated.
You went out on me. I didn't hear it.
No worries. Basically been a software engineer since I graduated. Dabbled in a couple other things. Tried out seminary for a little bit. Tried out wedding photography for a little bit, but always a software engineer in the background.
The seminary?
Yep.
Wow. What a trip, man. Was that your daughter that I saw come into the?
Yeah, that was the younger one, Anna. She's about 5, and then Emma is 8. She's somewhere around.
So you must have explored the seminary before that.
No, yeah, I guess it was before kids, but my wife and I were together at that time.
Oh wow.
Yep.
Okay.
I think depending on seminary is strictly
Catholic.
I don't think it is, right?
Yeah, it's the different. You could, I guess you could. It's probably associated mostly with Christian Catholic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Got it. Sorry for my narrow worldview.
No, no
So
worries.
do some research, Marty, before you join these things.
I know. It's recorded now. Gosh. Cool, man. It looks like you have a cool setup with I'm kind of a weirdo about like computer office setups, even though you have it bokeh'd out.
Yeah, that's actually my daughter/wife's setup.
Oh, wow.
Because I'd be I'm just facing my own right now.
So is it like a 6 monitor command center? Yeah.
No, for the longest time, I actually still don't own a personal computer.
What?
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, this is just my works stuff.
Why is it? Okay.
Yeah.
If Daniel's anything like me, he doesn't want to touch a computer when he gets home.
Yeah, I guess I could understand that.
Yeah,
Danny, you're still doing kung fu?
That probably took a pause maybe five or so years ago. Still keep in touch with the guys that I used to train with, but no real active training. I miss it though.
Yeah. Do you guys talk to Tony Lang?
Yeah.
We trade hearts on Instagram every now and then.
Yeah. He's in Japan right now, right? Is he doing something with wushu out there? Do you guys know?
He definitely posts like videos and stuff every now and then, but
based on his post, I think he just enjoys nature and eating food.
And meditate.
That's his job.
Cherry blossom
What a
trees.
life.
Yeah.
So Daniel, we were talking the other night. You are working with like artificial intelligence and stuff right now, right? Like you're in a startup for.
Yeah.
That sounded pretty interesting. I figured people would want to hear more about that.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's pretty fun. So I usually describe what I'm doing now as I'm building the benevolent Skynet.
Nice.
So one of our products is called the T16. We also have the T7 and the T380.
Oh wow.
You know that every movie starts out that way, where it's benevolent Skynet and it never stays benevolent.
Yep.
Daniel's helping. It's going to start in San Diego, and it's Daniel's fault.
We're still in the benevolent phase, though, Matt. So there's nothing to worry about right now.
Okay.
You know, sometimes the robots do things that we didn't tell them to do, but usually we just look into the code and then we can understand why.
You haven't started the war games with it yet?
No.
Once the code figures out how to lock you out of the code, it's all over.
Yeah, so you know the big industrial floor cleaners that you see maybe at night in a Walmart or in a mall.
Yeah.
Usually someone's sitting on top and driving it around.
Yes.
So we build autonomy kits that you can basically put sensors and software onto those big manual machines, and then they will drive around autonomously.
Wow.
Sam's Club has those. You're just
Sam's
walking and you just walk and they're just cleaning the aisle by themselves. You just got to watch out for them.
Yep. So one of the cool things that we're actually doing is building a new machine that it will actually go and scan inventory. So keeping track of what's in stock, what's out of stock, keeping track of pricing mistakes with OCR and computer vision, keeping track of other compliance things that need to, keep customers safe in the store, identify tripping hazards, empty pallets, things like that. So it's pretty fun.
Yeah, that's nuts.
It is nuts. I think it's crazy that our generation was like the last of the analog generation that also bridged over into all of the smart devices and cell phones and everything like that. Just in the last 20 years since we graduated high school, the advancements in technology and automation, things like that, it's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
That's why I'm just hoping I can not pay close attention to my health and stuff now. So Daniel's and Son's world will merge together, and like when
Yeah.
I'm 60 or 70, like I don't even have to worry about the stuff I'm doing to my heart with caffeine right now, because I'll just get a new mechanical heart
Guidelines start at
with
40,
sensors
Matt.
and stuff. What's that?
Guidelines start, like a lot of health guidelines start at age 40. So you were very close to.
Yeah.
No,
The
I know.
down-
I started hitting the decline, son. I've had to make some hard life choices lately.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Or they'll just export your consciousness into an 18-year-old clone of yourself for you. Just solve that problem.
I wouldn't mind that, as long as 18-year-old me with my wisdom now, I feel like would be a lot better guy. So that would be cool.
Ain't that the truth?
So I was talking to Daniel too about because I don't know if you guys have like experienced it with, there's a lot of pushback and stuff for AI and things like that, but it also just doesn't seem like, I think the broader, I guess, population really understands kind of technology and the way that stuff works. Because I hear a lot of stuff about like electric vehicles and things like that. Because I guess currently electric vehicles, obviously the electricity has to come from somewhere, and a lot of that is coal powered. And then there's also they have to mine the lithium and stuff for all the batteries. So it's not like super efficient to actually make electric vehicles, it sounds like. But what's your take, Daniel, on like the progression of technology and stuff, and like people that give a lot of pushback for things like trying to convert to clean energy or trying to switch over things to autonomous vehicles and things like that? That seems like there's a lot of people that are scared. Seems like it would be hard to get complete buy-in depending on what part of the country you're in.
Yeah, it's a really complicated question that I don't have an easy answer for, Matt.
Yep, 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's a struggle, right? Because you can build your electric vehicle, and or you let's say for your average consumer, you can buy your electric vehicle, you can put solar panels on your house, and once you're at that point, then you've minimized your carbon footprint. But all the journey to get there, to build the solar panels, like to get the batteries for your car, to build the car, all of that probably has a larger footprint. So do you think about your entry cost to get there, or your sort of sustaining cost afterwards? And I'd, off the cuff, I'd probably advocate for figuring out a way to get that minimize that entry cost so that we can get to that lower sustaining cost. It's probably gonna not be net positive in the beginning, like most entry costs, but we've got to figure out a way to get there, as a world, as a population.
Marty's question is what actually, or not your question, Marty, but your statement about like how crazy it was that, because there was even like in Fresh Prince and like shows like that, like in the, like before us in the 90s, where they had like the phones that were like this big and stuff, and like how small everything gets now. So like when I argue with people online, which I like to do sometimes about stuff like that, like my point is kind of like what Daniels was always saying. Like you look back at like computers back in like the 80s and stuff that would take up entire rooms, and even earlier than that, where it would just be these large buildings that they would have to do, and stuff that we can do way more efficiently in our phone. It seems like there's always that in order to get to a place where things are more efficient and more beneficial to people as a whole, it takes quite a while for that cost of entry to come down low.
Can we talk about that arguing online topic for a little bit? I have something.
Oh yeah,
like the prevalence.
Let's do it. Let's argue about it, Marty.
Yeah,
maybe
right here.
do it. We should do it online in a thread.
Yeah, I know. We should create a chat room or something so we don't have to look at each other when we send the nasty messages. But like Like, do you guys have Ring, the doorbell camera or anything like that?
I'm still
So there's
sourcing
a
it.
there's
I'm
a
trying to-
partner to it, which is called Neighbors. Are you guys familiar? That like
No.
aggregates your, all of your neighbors, like what they post. Like, if Jacqueline had somebody come up and try to steal a package, she would post it on there and be like, watch out for this guy or something like that. Like, I'll check that once in a while. I get notifications on there when like a neighbor down the street, had a coyote in her front lawn or something like that. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Take a look at that. I have dogs. I don't want them to get, taken away by a coyote. And there'll be people that are like, hey, did anybody hear that loud boom? And I'm like, oh, there was a loud boom. And I read that. And then immediately someone comes in and is like, it was just a loud boom. Why are you posting about this? Don't take up space in here with posts like this. And I'm like, what the fuck is this guy? Why is that necessary to say? And it's like every time I see something, there's somebody that goes in there and like picks a fight with somebody. What is
Or
that?
they make it political.
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
it was like, it's like, it was the election being stolen from Trump or something like that. I'm not making a political statement, but like I live in Santee, and so that's the kind of stuff that gets said out here. But it's just amazing that's just like, it was a neighbor just trying to say, hey, I heard a loud boom. You don't even have to comment. You know what I mean? You just scroll right past it, but somebody has to say something crazy.
I have a response, an answer to your problem based in some psychology and philosophy. So I've noticed for myself, and then I think I've noticed in other people that are more apt to act that way and argue. There's not been a time that I've responded to someone like that online that I was either content in the moment of what I was doing or that I was happy with life in general. So I tend to think that people that, if that's your default, they've probably got more going on in their life, and that's kind of like whatever that is online. Like you're anonymous to a point, but you can do whatever you want on a keyboard, and no one's gonna punch you in the face or get mad at you for it. So I think most people, because I was telling someone a funny story the other day. It was probably a few months ago. I was really stressed. Like there's a lot going on with work, with life, pretty much anything that was stressing me out could. And my mother-in-law lives with us right now. She's actually moving out next month, so there's a lot of stress right now about all that. But anyway, she'd gone to the grocery store and she bought a bunch of packets of frozen peas. And she put the peas in the freezer, and I opened the door and like 3 bags of peas came out. I started yelling, and I picked up a bag of peas and threw it across the house because I was mad that the peas fell out. I then I stopped for a second. I was like, oh, this is stupid for me mad at peas. Like this, it's all the other stress and anger that I have in life. And it was just because those bag of peas, like I could do something about that. Like that was something for me to focus it on. So I think for most people, that's just like, you either feel like you can't say how you feel to your boss, you can't say how you feel to your spouse or your significant other. Like if your kids are driving you nuts and you don't know what to do about that, then all of a sudden there's someone online that says something stupid and you're like, oh, I know, I can let all of this out. Like there might be like a fraction of those people that actually genuinely care that deeply about whatever they're arguing about. But I think for most people, it's just a release of everything they have inside. And that's like something they can focus it on.
Gotcha. So they're frustrated and they just so happen to get the neighbor's notification and they see that and they're like, you know what? And they let them have it in there. I believe that. To quote Forrest Gump, you always put things in a way I can understand it, Matt.
I mean, I could be full of crap. That has happened in the past, but that's my best guess after like just from looking within myself and watching the way other people are about things. Like
That's pretty deep, Matt. I would
Thanks.
I'd give you a clapping hands emoticon if we were on a thread.
Thank you. You could send me a heart emoji to my cell phone.
I'll do that. I'll do that later.
Since I'm not on Instagram right now.
I don't do that on social media. I do it to my wife. My poor wife has to take the brunt of my frustration and yeah. So
Hey,
she'll just be
kids.
walking by and I'm like,
Okay.
what is this again? What's going on?
Like to your wife or like about other things, like you just complain to her about life, or you just take it out on your wife like
No,
why is my
like,
sock on the floor?
No, like I was frustrated this week about something, and she's been trying to get me to change her windshield wiper fluid for like a week and a half, and I just kept procrastinating on it. And she was, not laying into me about it, but reminding me that it's been like 8 days since she originally asked me, and I told her I would do it. And I was like, you know what? Do you know what I'm doing? Like, one of those. And then 10 minutes later, I was like, jeez, man, I'm such an immature kid.
I think everybody does that because I do that. Like if I've had a stressful day at work or just anything, and then I get off of work, and if my kids don't do what I asked them to on the first time, they only get that one chance. And after that, I'm just like, oh my gosh, why is nobody listening to me? Like, so
Yep.
your patience is just on thin ice.
Yeah.
And whoever's around you gets the brunt of that.
Just falls through it.
unfortunately.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just steps right in it and falls through. Yeah.
And we can't be perfect, like there's only so much we can do. That's why like I'm good at work, but when it comes to like home life, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I drove over like standing water, guys, and I destroyed my battery and my alternator. And that just, I was like, oh, I'm from San Diego. That was like my own. Every time I make a mistake like that, I said, I'm from San Diego. What do you expect? Like, if I got in a car accident out here, like,
It's true, man.
Like, I don't know this. I've seen rain.
Yeah, upstate New York is a different beast, man. Do you guys get lake effect snow up there, right?
That's like more like Rochester, New York.
Okay.
That's more Western New York. I'm more like I'm closer to the border of like Massachusetts,
Got it.
Vermont. Yeah.
Yeah.
New York City is like 2.5 hours south of me. So.
Yeah. I forget sometimes how big upstate New York is.
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah.
range, it's massive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Even
still
if-
finding. I don't know if you guys feel the same way. Like, I just started feeling like an adult maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, which is weird because I'm turning 38 next month. But I'm like, I don't know. Sometimes I still catch myself just like driving around, being like, "Is this real? Like, am I faking everything?" Like, it's sort of like
you're ahead of me, Matt.
a total imposter syndrome. Well, I know, Daniel, you still have you do Pokemon Go and have some fun.
Yeah, I just
You come off super
bought a-
serious, but
I bought a whole giant bag of or a couple tubs of used Legos off Craigslist.
Oh,
For the kids. Like making my childhood dreams come true when I didn't have enough money to buy Legos.
I remember we used to do Science Olympiad, and it was you and some other, I don't remember who all was involved, but you guys always did like the actual like real science type stuff, and then there would be like competitions like, hey, build a bridge or a tower out of
remember
balsa
the
wood.
spaghetti bridge?
Yeah, see how much weight it
Okay.
can hold. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna do that. But then like I'd start building it in the back of my mind, I'd be like, what would Daniel say if he was looking at this structure? Because we have like these math projects where I don't know if it was paper or if it was straws, but we would have to see like who could build the highest kind of tower using like
markers or
the
something
same
like
amount
that.
of
Material.
I always remember like Daniel's would be like towering up there, and like mine would be half the size and starting to fall over.
Sounds about right.
My dad was a big help there. He would always be stretching me and pushing me. A lot of times I'd show him my thing. He's like, no, try it this way. And then that was what was brought to school.
My dad didn't know anything about any of that stuff, so it would always be like he would just be willing to buy me the materials and then like pat me on the shoulder afterwards and say, you did the best you could, son.
Dan, your family's still in the Claremont area?
Yeah, still in Claremont. Yep. Yeah, good.
I don't know if you answered this, Daniel, but have you stayed in San Diego? I think I missed the beginning of the conversation.
Yep, still in San Diego. Yeah, it's sort of funny. Like people ask me where I'm from. It's like, yep, grew up in San Diego. If you're familiar, like went to elementary like a couple blocks away, actually with Marty. Remember Marty disappeared for a little bit, and then we met up again. I guess in
High school.
Sophomore year of high school.
Yeah.
And then junior high was at Croc. on the other side of Claremont Mesa, and then actually got closer to home when I went to high school, then went to UCSD, and then worked in Rancho Bernardo, and now I work in Sereno Valley. So
It
Very
always
nice.
it always blows my mind when we talk to people that we graduated with that have stayed in San Diego. So I know, like, just bouncing around from jobs and stuff after college, and then like I went up to Los Angeles and stayed there for I think about 7 years. And everything was so expensive. I don't know if it's because I just sucked so bad with money that it seemed impossible to stay in California or what, but like it seems like it would be hard to you'd have to be responsible pretty consistently, it seems like, to stay in Southern California and made a good living, a good life.
no, it's hard, Matt.
Is that-
I live in Santee, guys.
I'm not even in San Diego County. I'm in Murrieta. I got as close as I could get.
Yeah.
No, I think being raised though. Oh,
Go ahead, son.
I just feel like, I'm living in different places that I've lived in. I feel so grateful being born and raised in San Diego, because I
I
think
know.
we have the diversity that these places they've never really seen. They're
Yeah.
not used to it whatsoever. They're not used to like having a bunch of different friend groups, and I think when I see that now, or kids get bused to school, that's normal. It's part of what they do, but we walked. And
Yeah.
it's just so interesting, I'm just so happy I'm from San Diego, and I always tell people that all the time.
Son, you walked like a block.
I
You
know.
walked like 100 feet.
That was close. That was close.
You know
He's
what I
right
remember?
though. I remember living on the East Coast, and first of all, just everywhere you go, you're like, man, San Diego's so much better. It's like you're like the food's better. Like everybody talks about the weather, but the food is a big part of it too. Like, just good Asian food for me, good Vietnamese food is like such an important thing for me. And when I lived in places where I didn't have access to that, you felt that emptiness of it, not being able to get access to it. Something about food that like identifies home for you is like an important characteristic of a place that I live for me. Interestingly, I found that Virginia, if you guys have ever been there, has like great Asian food all across the spectrum: Chinese, Thai, Vietnamese, Filipino, like it's just like amazing. But I guess that's because there's a big military presence, and then with military presence, you get a lot of Asians as well. But yeah, that was like the only place living on the East Coast that I was where I felt like there was good food. But the diversity part is crazy in how it's different in different pockets. Like in Florida, it was like a South American country with Cuban and Colombian and all these South American countries. And then in Virginia, it was like black, white, and a little bit of Puerto Ricans, and then some like other Hispanics kind of mixed in there. Arizona, no offense, Matt, it was like very homogenous, Caucasian, with like dense populations of like, pockets, like these dense pockets of like Asian or different groups if you went to the certain areas for it, but it was like certain areas for it. Whereas where we grew up, it was like, we had the Asian group in our friends, we had, it was like Middle Eastern people, all this stuff. And that's totally normal, but that's not for a lot of people.
Yeah,
A lot of people.
I was telling someone the other day, just kind of with the way some people can be out, especially like in Arizona, it depends on, I guess, how far away you are from Phoenix and kind of the more metro areas. It seems like but even like in some of the cities that are more affluent than the others, they're pretty whitewashed. But I was like, man, if I would have said like half the things some of these guys tried to say in high school, like I would have had half the school like just beat me to pieces, like in front of everybody. Like you would not be able to, like, even if you thought things, or you like, even if, like, I imagine there's probably people we went to school with that were racist and things like that, but they knew better than to actually say any of it.
Yeah.
They might have had friends that they might have gone like, but you weren't going to say anything like that because you would have not made it very long. I mean, the schools we went to, like there's a guy I worked with in General Motors, and his name was Joe Padarakun. Don't remember, he was Asian, but I don't remember if it like specifically where, but he was like in his high school, he grew up in Arizona. He was the only Asian kid in like a class of like 600. Right. Because like I was talking to him and he was like talking about like how weird it was growing up in Arizona and stuff. And I just kind of, I don't know, it blew my mind because I've just been used to Southern California. So moving out here was, but I'm also the enemy right now with being a middle-aged white male. So I do recognize I have a certain amount of privilege for some of that stuff that, like, if I wasn't like seeing it or had people that I cared about that had to go through stuff like that, then I don't know, it's just weird. Like,
That's
I can't
the
imagine.
first step, acknowledging it, Matt.
Yes, thank you.
You guys watch This Is America on HBO? It's the guy that Sacha Baron Cohen, the guy that does Borat. Oh, it's so good, guys. You have to watch it. It's so good.
Is it like, is he actually still playing like a character like he does in Borat, or is he doing like real interviews as himself? Like,
no, he does different characters everywhere he goes. One of them, he's in Arizona, and you might have seen clips on this, like you can see it on YouTube. But he's in like this small town in Arizona, and he goes out there. And he's like, "We're gonna do some massive economic development here. We're gonna build the largest mosque in the Western Hemisphere right here in your town." And they're like, "What? We don't want that. That's the," and he's like, "You could do the 300 million version." And it's like this crazy opulent mosque. And he's like, "Or we could do the 500 million version." And it's like, just triple the size of that one. And people are like, "This is why they took our guns away before we came in here." I mean, it was so funny. And like how he deals with them and talks to them, he like pretends like he's totally unaware. But the character that he plays is super, super funny. He sets it up as, I'm your middle-aged, self-hating white guy. It's so funny, man. Like I can't even get the words out without laughing at it. It's so funny. Yeah. It's worth a binge, guys. And he interviews people like Senator Sanders and Vice President under Bush. What was his name? It's escaping me. Second Bush president. Doesn't matter. He interviews him and a bunch of people that work for him, and he pitches the idea to like congressmen, right? People, sitting congressmen. He pitches the idea of training kindergartners.
Oh yeah, it was Dick Cheney.
Yes, Dick. Oh my God, it's so funny. And he's got congressmen like agreeing, yeah, that's a great idea. And he calls the program Kindergartens. And he's got these politicians like, yeah, this is a great idea. And he's posing as a former Israeli defense guy who like consults them on national security and stuff like that. Guys, you have to please do yourself the favor. It's so good.
Yeah, I find it weird being out here. Like I didn't feel like I had to when I lived in Long Beach in Southern California, but it's a struggle out here to, especially like I said, I'm further east, more kind of in like suburban area. Almost like getting to the point of being rural, but now it's like starting to develop more. But like walking around and just like hoping people can like tell, like I try to keep like a pleasant look on my face just so they know like I'm a nice guy, just because it seems like the people out here are so angry. And now that it is becoming more diverse, like where we're at, but yeah, there's always that balance of, because you see people that obviously have only ever been around like one type of person their whole life, and they have the bumper stickers and the shirts to prove it. But so there's always that balance of like wanting people to know that like you're not that type of person, especially in these areas. So that's been a weird thing I wasn't expecting when I moved out to Arizona, but luckily
is that normal for the area that you're in? Because Ellen and I considered moving to Queens Creek, which is where I think you live, right?
I live in Santan Valley, which is like 20 minutes east of there. So Queen Creek is still super white, but it's the housing prices are higher there. So you tend to have people that are more like career minded and have better education, which I typically associate those things. I don't know if it's incorrect, but with having more openness to diversity and things. I don't think
Yeah.
most people can get very far with some things if they are openly racist and hateful. So
I kind of think the opposite. So I'm gonna get personal right now. I've been having a hard time developing friendships in Murrieta because a lot of the community here is, like you said, they're more, the housing prices, well, compared to San Diego, it's different, but
Yeah.
a lot of people will come here and they'll buy larger houses because you can get more house for your money. And they're focused on owning a home. It's not a renter's area. So most people own their homes. And I don't know, I just don't connect to people here because of the demographic. Like I grew up in San Diego where I had a large variety of races as friends, and I feel more comfortable even with certain races than others. And over here, I just feel like it's a cookie cutter, everybody's the same, and I don't connect with them. Sorry.
Murrieta's taken you offline.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, I don't know. And I feel like maybe, Sen, you might have that experience because
Yeah.
you are in a different area where, like you said, you come from San Diego where you're used to the
Yeah.
dynamics being a certain way, and then you get placed somewhere where it's different. And I really am having, like, I'm cordial with a lot of people.
Yeah.
I know how to do that.
Right.
But developing like solid friendships, I don't have those out here.
I could tell you, like, just being in medicine, because a lot of people in medicine come from medicine, and my family definitely wasn't like that. So just realizing that a lot of the people I work with it's all temporary, it was really difficult to accept. Like I realized that in the course of my studying, if I needed help, they may not help me, like my friends or my so-called friends. But then when if they needed help, I would help them, And I realized, like, since graduating from medical school and going through residency, a lot of people just care about themselves, and especially in this field. And so it's really hard to make true friends. Like, I just graduated yesterday, but I can honestly tell you, my class, my other 3 residents, my co-residents I worked with the last 4 years, without them, like their support and their friendships over the years, and it was very organic because we were in it together. I don't know if I would have made it through, because even the classes previously, a lot of times they don't even say goodbye and they just leave. So, I realized, like, in my field, a lot of it is like temporary, and it's because I'm a doctor that people treat me the way I do, not because of who I am. I feel like a lot of times, because I'm walking down the hallway in the hospital with my white coat on, the long coat, and people think they won't even say hello to you. But when you're a medical student or something with a short coat, they don't feel as intimidated by you, so they'll say hello. And people won't even look you in the eye. They just assume that you're rich, and they don't realize, like, I have half a $250,000 in loans still left.
I was just going to ask you that, son. That was one of the questions I wanted to ask you.
Yeah. So, like, they don't think about that. They don't think about those things, and it's tough. It's tough. So, and I think, like, I could say probably a lot of people through this medical training, it's like that, where it's difficult, and if you don't have that support outside of work, it's hard to get through, or you don't have a very good boss. Like, I was very, very lucky to have a good program director who just watched my back the whole step of the way and gave me the confidence to know that I can do it, because it's because you go through so much. Like, if you're going through this, you're competing against so many people.
Yeah.
And it's sobering, I would say. And I think too, Jackie, as we get older, it's hard to find friends. It's like in high school, we all had the same stuff. But now like people look at us and go, what you do for a living first? And then they think, okay, are you worthy of my time?
Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
Well, son, I was thinking about it the other day. Son's the only reason that I graduated calculus in high school. 'Cause in 11th grade, I was hit by a car and I had like 4 different surgeries on my knee. So I was out for like months at a time, like for each of those surgeries, because I couldn't have any weight or anything on my leg. And son came over to my house and like he'd bring bring his math book and he'd sit down and like he's super patient, like explaining like all the problems to me so I could finish homework and take tests and pass it. So it's cool that you found something. It seems like being a doctor would be more enjoyable to you, son, because you always seemed like you were quiet, but like you were like super genuine and always trying to help people. Yeah. So I could see how being a doctor would be better suited than just being kind of like a faceless guy in a white coat behind a counter at some store, like just handing out pills to people. Not if anyone's listening as a pharmacist, I respect pharmacists. But do you find people? Oh, go ahead, Marty.
I was just gonna say I second that, Matt. I want to say that like every one of my interactions with you, son, I would always walk away like, damn, that was some thoughtful shit, thought-provoking stuff.
I think Sun has always had a good balance. Yes, academics were important, but that wasn't your life. And it was obvious. Like it came off like you still were a person, that you weren't a robot where that's all you cared about.
So a question for you, son. So do you find being a doctor difficult kind of with the with health insurance companies and things? Because it seems like, I don't know, I have a bad experience with doctors just over I think the course of my life. It seems like there's maybe a handful of doctors that I can think of that actually seem like they cared about anything that was happening to me. And like most of them seem like they're just like, oh, like write down what you say, like here's a prescription, like like go through the checklist, make sure they don't give me any advice or miss anything that's going to kill me and the hospital to get sued for. But other than that, it's kind of like in and out. And there's like, I couldn't remember sometimes like I would need to ask additional questions, but I was like kind of shoot out of the room so I could go to like the next room. So is it hard for you to like balance kind of what you want to do, or does that just depend on who you work for?
I think it's a little bit of both. You have to understand the medical training has changed a lot. There used to be like an hourly limit or no hourly limit to how much residents can work. So as residents, we act as the right-hand person to our attendings. So when we can do whatever they do under the law. So I would say with insurances, there's so many metrics you have to cover for them to pay for the visit that I think a lot of times it gets lost in the shuffle of what you're doing. Because I can tell you honestly, how much time do I actually spend with the patient versus how much time I actually do paperwork for the patient? Like if I'm at the hospital, honestly, I see the patient for like 10 minutes. And I don't come back into the room unless emergency happens. Or the nurse tells me, hey, something's happening, you need to see this patient now. So it's a lot of my job is paperwork. And it's tough, and I think people realize that, and you lose the humanity of it. I think after a while, it's easy to become jaded because if you think about it, like for any profession, you work so long, you get so good at it. Like I work with attendings who already know the answer when I say like one sentence, they know exactly what they're going to do and how this is going to play out, And so I think the longer you go, it becomes easier, the work you do, but it doesn't take away the barriers to the care that you have to overcome. Because you can come up with the best drug possible, but who's going to pay for it? Nobody's going to pay out of pocket. Like what's the research is going to be done? Research is only going to get done if it's going to be beneficial to the pharmaceutical company, and things like that. So it's a tough world.
It's crazy. I had a torn rotator cuff recently. It had several tears, and my options were paying close to $2,000 out of pocket to get these PRP injections
Mhm.
that had a higher probability of helping the tendons repair themselves and get everything calmed
Yeah,
down in
that's
my
what we're
shoulder.
talking about.
Or I could have my health insurance cover going in for surgery, which would make it where I couldn't use my arm for like 2 months. And I was like, okay, well, luckily I could pay for the shots. But yeah, when you find those like doctors and even the PAs and stuff that care, a lot of times they seem just as frustrated
Yeah.
as the patients do, that they can't do more of that stuff.
Yeah.
In
This
my
is so-
experience, the doctors that tend to show that they care more are ones who don't take insurance.
Hmm.
So they
That's
don't
true.
have to deal with all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
It's the ones you have to pay out of pocket for. And actually, most of the time they're DOs. So I'm happy to hear that you're a DO because they do have a more holistic approach. And that's very important in my family. We've had a lot of
What does DO stand for?
Doctor of Osteopathic Medicine.
What is
Osteopathic medicine.
I know what doctor means.
Osteopathic medicine. So in this country, there's two ways to become a physician. There's allopathic medicine and osteopathic medicine. Allopathic medicine is your medical doctor, your MD, and that's been around forever. That gives you, like, if you did offshore or U.S. medical school, then you get that. DO schools are typically only in the United States, and the difference is just more or less the philosophy of being a DO. We still have to know everything a regular MD does. Like I actually go to an MD residency, but we learned a little bit more about like osteopathic manipulative techniques, or OMM is what we call it, osteopathic manipulative medicine. So that's like where we separate from the MDs. But in terms of our training, like I took the same exams the MDs did. So
in layman's terms, Matt, basically they have a more holistic approach.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when I
Okay.
go to like a naturopath that has like they have an actual medical degree, they're a doctor, then
Most of the time they're DOs.
okay.
yeah, it's either MD or DO, and naturopathic doctor is different. So that's an ND. So that's not the same.
But naturopaths can have they can also, because I see one that has both. So
Yeah.
they're a DO and a naturopath.
Yeah.
Well, hey, if you guys don't mind, I have to drop off in 3 minutes because I have to get ready for church. But I was thinking if you want to think about like one kind of round robin of a single question, Marty, does that sound good?
Yeah.
Since we've been talking about some heavier hitting topics, I guess we'll start with Daniel, and we'll go Daniel's son, Marty, Jackie, and then I'll wrap it up. But so Daniel, you start. What was the hardest lesson you'd say you had to learn since graduation?
Hardest lesson.
Probably should have told you I was going to ask you this at the beginning, so you could have
No,
thought about it.
I think the hardest lesson for me, and I continue to learn it, and definitely haven't passed it, is that like I have my own goals. People have expectations for me, and a lot of times those things aren't reached. But what really matters is like how I'm treating and helping like my coworkers or my family or people I come across. Like those, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what goals I have or what expectations people put on me. It's more about being available to help the people around me. And so it's constantly, like resetting that and putting my own goals or other people's expectations in the context of how am I affecting or influencing or helping the people around me. So I think that's the hardest thing that, continue to keep in tension and relearn very often.
It's a good one. It's hard. I struggle with that too. It's hard not to be selfish most of my day.
I would say just realizing that every person is on their own life journey, and it's easy when you think that the high school bubble or the college bubble or work bubble, and that's your life. that's always going to be your life. I think what I tell the younger generation is, you're on your own path. Like, who cares what you need to do or how you do it? It's that you're on your own path. So don't look at how somebody else is doing what they're doing, even if it takes you longer or shorter, it doesn't matter. In the end, you only have one life to live. So, I just wish I would have known that back then. I wouldn't stress out as much. So that's what I'd say.
I do remember you seemed like you were stressed quite a bit, and
Oh yeah,
when I was around you more, son.
yeah, I was.
What about you, Jackie?
Question for the guys?
What's that?
Do I ask them a question now?
No, I was gonna have you and Jackie answer the question too.
Oh, okay. Can you
That's
ask the
all right.
question one more time? I was thinking
Yeah.
the whole time I was thinking about the question I want to ask them.
Well, you can ask your question if you've been thinking about it the whole time.
Yeah. Okay. Advice you would give yourself at graduation. If you walked into, graduation, walked up to yourself right after you received your diploma, what's the advice you would give yourself?
And it can't be the same answer as what you just gave to my question. It has to be something different.
All right, I'll
Shouldn't-
start off. Yeah. You're going to be challenged, and you're going to be humbled, and you're going to fail. This isn't going to be high school. No one's going to do well. But know that, you have what it takes inside to persevere. And it's not about just doing well the first time, it's how you bounce back, and that you have it in you. So just stay the course and trust the process. You'll be okay.
Our own little valedictorian speech all over again.
Where were you, son, when I graduated? 'Cause I almost dropped out freshman year of college because
Did you really?
yeah.
Wow, I would have never guessed that.
Yeah, I was failing.
It's tough. It's tough.
That would have been the worst valedictorian speech ever. It's like, you're not going to go out and do great things. You're going to struggle. It's going to suck, and you're going to make mistakes.
But you'll bounce back.
Yeah.
Just the process. You'll be good.
And in 20 years, you'll maybe start to feel like you have a grasp on life.
That's tough love. That's tough love advice.
Yeah.
What did you answer the question, Daniel? It's your turn. You're on the hot seat now.
Yeah, I I don't know. I just think
Be frozen.
No,
no,
I saw
just
his,
thinking.
I saw his mouth twitch a little bit. He's still alive.
I'll say the advice I would give myself is that nobody cares as much as you do. Like, nobody cares about your shit as much as you do. So don't put that as a priority in how you make decisions. Like, nobody's watching you. Like, nobody's watching your trajectory. No one's going to really pay attention to it. So don't think, as I remember when my life came to a crashing halt in 2008, I remember thinking, I'm coming back to San Diego as a failure. Everybody's going to think I'm a loser, that I met the expectations that everybody had for me. And it's like, everybody's like, oh, hey, what have you been up to? And it's like, nobody knew, nobody was paying attention.
Yeah, mine goes along with that. I would say just not to expect anyone to understand or appreciate anything that you're going through or anything that you do, unless there's someone that's close to you and you've spent time explaining it all to. I think a lot of my frustration in life has come from expecting people, whether it's like coworkers or friends, people at church, like whoever, to appreciate or understand the sacrifices I make to do stuff for other people. And I don't want to go around telling everyone, like, do you understand what I'm giving up by helping you with this? So if I'm going to do anything now, I do it going in because it's something I want to do. It's part of my character. It makes me feel better, but I try to have as little expectation of getting anything as far as a response or appreciation back from people. And that seems to alleviate a lot of my frustration with other people. Kind of ties in with everything you guys were saying.
So mine kind of ties in with that as well. It's like I've come to recognize I can't have expectations because every time that I have an expectation in anybody else, I will get let down. So if I cut out the expectation to begin with, then I won't have that let down feeling. So I just try to go more with the flow rather than plan everything out so it meets my goals or my expectations. But then aside, my answer to the question was originally going to be that it's okay to change. Like
Yeah.
you grow up, especially during our high school years, you portray yourself as a certain way. And then when you leave, and then when you come back, those people that knew you during that time, when they recognize that you have changed, they often see that as a bad thing because they don't know you any other way. But it is okay to change as long as that change is bettering yourself.
Yeah, I think that's hard. That's a quote I heard said, don't continue making the same mistake just because you invested a lot of time in making it.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah. Cool. Well, that's an hour and 6 minutes.
It's
Yeah, I knew you
good.
got off the hook.
I got my answer if you want it.
Yeah.
It's just I think be more curious. Be more curious about understanding why. Don't jump to conclusions. Understanding people, understanding where they're coming from, understanding how things work. Just like practice and build up that curiosity muscle.
That's a good one.
I found life's more enjoyable the less certain I felt about what I knew and what was going on around me. It seemed like you learn a lot more if you if you go into it just trying to figure things out versus trying to act like you have everything together.
Yeah. Life outside the comfort zone, right?
That was a
Cool.
good discussion, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was.
That's fun.
Hey, Daniel, son, it was really good to see you guys, man.
Yeah, it's
Really
good to see
cool
you,
to
Martin.
talk to you guys.
Likewise.
I'm so happy for both your success, man. It makes me feel like I like the saying steel sharpens steel. And so I feel like my potential is higher seeing how well you guys are doing. So I don't know if that makes sense, but it's the feeling I get.
Yeah, it was encouraging. It's a good way to start a Sunday morning, a weekend, any morning really. It's like an hour long of just having
Miracle
Jackie text.
morning.
Yeah, it's an hour long of Jackie texting us encouragement and support.
Yeah, Jackie, so good.
She does do that too.
I was actually going to ask you guys, do you want me to continue to text you? I feel
I
like
look forward to
it. Okay.
It does.
Sometimes I'm like, I feel like I'm repeating myself.
It does help me switch gears sometimes. Like
Okay.
if I wake up pissed or if I'm tired or if I'm frustrated, then I see a text from Jackie and then I'm like, oh, like I should probably respond in a way that doesn't just like bring her down in the morning. And then but then like I have to adjust my perspective and attitude. And then I'm like, oh, I feel better now. That's nice.
All
You
right.
know what?
I will continue.
One day this week, Jacqueline, I was like, I walked in, opened up my email, and I saw an email that I was like, fuck, like I need to focus on this and like figure this out. And then your text came in and I was like, oh yeah, you're right. Let me go look at the sunrise for a second here and like get my shit together. And so that was helpful.
Good. I'll continue. I'm sorry you had Thursday off. I took a vacation day and I did not wake up early enough to do it.
No worries. Cool.
All right, guys.
All right,
Well,
guys.
that was good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Matt, I'll send this over to you.
Episode 9, Son's Anatomy, coming at you in a day or two.
Yes. It's also
Thanks,
kind
Marty.
of on Sons of Anarchy, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
It was
All right,
nice
guys.
to see you guys.
Nice to see you, Jackie.
Take care, guys.
Hi, guys.
Bye.
Thanks.
See you guys.